Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Social Table with Double Up Social. This series aims to look at how multi location brands are approaching social, local awareness, and customer engagement. And today we are featuring Jessica Nathan, Operations Director for Bethany Blues, with branches in Bethany Beach, Lewis, and downtown, just set back from Rehoboth Beach in Delaware. I hope I said that right. I messed it up before. But Jessica, it's great to have you on. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
No, it's great to have you. Just to begin with, just to warm up, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey into hospitality? Was this always kind of the plan, or did you find yourself in the hospitality industry sort of unexpectedly?
Well, I don't think it was always in the plan. I think I've been in the hospitality industry my whole life. So my first job was fast food, which I don't know if that counts, but it's certainly in there. But my first job, like my good money paying job, was I was a server in a restaurant. And when you're in high school and you're making cash tips, I thought it was like the greatest find ever. And I think, the intent was never to stay in there. It was always about like making some money for school, flexibility and travel. And then as time always moves on and you end up staying and moving around, and it's always a job that you can get, which I appreciate about it. But no matter where you travel, and I'd been to a lot of different states and lived in a lot of places before I decided where my home was going to be, it was always something I could fall back on. So I think that's kind of how that journey happened. And then I ended up with a great company now, and I've just stayed.
And what brought you to Delaware in the first place?
I went to the University of Delaware.
Mm.
And when I graduated, actually, my senior year, a friend of mine said, let's go down to the beach. And I was like, okay, let's try something new again. And I went down to the Delaware beaches. And well, that was a while back and I stayed. So I think it was, I don't know, there's something about where we live, the Delaware beaches. It really is. It's home, it's quaint. And I think it just was attractive.
And what about it kind of made you want to stay?
Well, at the time, I don't wanna date myself, but at the time, it was a community smaller, I think it was unknown. For in Delaware, we're essentially located to all these big major cities. We got Baltimore, you've got New York, there's a lot of New Jersey, but it's so quaint and small. At the time, I was like, "This is like a little oasis," and we're touristy, so your summers were great, winters nice and quiet, and everybody was able to, I don't know, just a great community. It's definitely, I feel like people found us, so that little unknown part of it is not as unknown anymore, but it still has that quaint small town feel.
You've been revealed. So is it now more of a sort of hotspot than it was prior?
It is, for sure. I think, with honestly, I think after COVID, I think people found they could work remotely, they could work from home. They started going other places. They found our little beach area, and, many of them stay down here, work remotely, but it's definitely changed the fabric a bit. What used to be summer rentals is now Airbnb. There's so much more traffic down here, which is there's great for the hospitality industry and great for our restaurant, and then, of course, it takes away a little bit of the stuff that initially brought us down here, but, I'd say it's worth a trip. You should come visit.
Yeah, I would love to. And when you tell people what you do, what do they normally assume being in operations looks like, and how do you think that differs from what it actually looks like in reality?
Well, yeah, I think, I hope people realize that when you say you're in the restaurant industry and you're in operations, that it translates to it's a lot of work. I think some people might think it's a bit glamorous. I think as they see you move up the ladder and you go from maybe, oftentimes you'll hear managers saying, I started out as a dishwasher or a busboy or a food runner. And as they move up, I think they think you do less work, but the exact opposite is true. You tend to do more work. So I think maybe that's a misconception that as you get higher in the ranks, that you're actually, on easy street, and that's not the case.
And is there such thing as a typical day for you? I mean, I guess most days kind of probably look a little bit different, but if there was a typical day, what kind of does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think every day is different for sure, but I think a typical day for someone who's never been in the industry, for a manager, it would be, you know well, me, I'll just say me. I wake up and we have a manager log where all our restaurants, we can communicate across all three. So we have one platform that we can go to, and I can see everything that happened in every location, from sales to comments to customer, issues or compliments. So I check that out because I can't be in all three places at once. So I do look at that every morning to see what happened. I also see what's coming up so that I know like what I'm in for the day, if anybody needs help, if there's an event or something major going on. And then going into the restaurant, sort of like part two of the day, where you're just gearing up for what the night shift might look like. You're gearing up for what staffing challenges, equipment challenges. You're just sort of doing all that, getting yourself prepared for the big push. And then, of course, there's service. So when service comes, it honestly is just 3 to 4 hours, depending on what your time frame is, of just moving. I call it the execution. Like, if you're not prepared, you're sinking, but if you prepared all day, you're good. And then, it's the big cleanup side. So each day is different, but that sort of breaks it down into, like, categories of how the day flows.
Yeah, yeah. No, that was very succinct. And obviously, when guests walk into the restaurant, they see great food and drinks and service. But what are some of the things happening behind the scenes that most people are not thinking about, specifically as it pertains to you and what you're up to at that point?
I think most people aren't thinking about, all the challenges that happened prior to get the
Mm.
doors open, or maybe still happening. I mean, I think some of the things that strike me right away is our kitchen. I don't think people realize the kitchen, it's a hot kitchen. I can't I've never worked in a restaurant that didn't have a really hot kitchen. So it's not unique to us. I think that's just the nature of a kitchen. I think people don't realize that at any given time, you have a staffing issue. At any given time, the dish machine might have some alarm going off. Some equipment is having an issue. So I think when people see the doors open, if the restaurant's doing their job, they have no idea that those things have been happening in the background, or the amount of legwork it took to get the doors open. So,
What do you think the biggest challenge is that comes with the overseeing of operations?
oh goodness, I think for me, I would say right now it's staffing. And
Mm.
I just say that in general. I think trying to find, sometimes enough workers, sometimes, folks that are really, um, I guess the way to say it would be really, excited about what they're doing. I feel like what we do, you need to have like, you almost need to check your baggage at the door all the time, because the folks coming in don't really want to know that you've had a bad day. And that's
Mm.
hard because you're trying to be considerate of your staff, and understanding, but at the same time, you're like, "Yep, and it's showtime, so we have to keep moving." So I think the challenges for me would be staffing and making sure that everybody's feeling great and at the same time putting out their best all the time.
How is that juggle for you, sort of managing staff and putting out fires whilst also being the sort of swan on top of the water whilst underneath your legs are probably going like this? How do you
Oh,
find
yeah.
balance of those two things go opposite in opposite directions?
Well, I think I rely a lot on my management team, and I think any business, whether it's hospitality or whatever it is, I think if you have a really solid management team that you've cultivated over the years, that helps. So turnover with management's hard for me, uh, because I rely on them a lot to keep. I can't be in all three places at once. So to keep that vibe to if you think about each manager has 20 to 30 employees coming in with different challenges. If that all came my way, it would be really difficult. So I think for me, managing it, I rely a lot on my team. And then they, of course, rely a lot on me. So you
Yeah.
try to be there, they're like, we need guidance, Jess. So I think every day is a little bit different. But the key, honestly, would be to make sure that my management team is as excited and happy and plugged in as they can be. And that makes my job easier.
I mean, it sounds like you're running a pretty smooth ship down there, and culture is quite important to you. Would you say that's true? And how do you kind of foster a vibrant culture down there amongst your management team, and that filters down to the front of house?
Yeah, I would say I appreciate that you think we run a really good ship. I think most times it's floating. Um, but I my ownership group, from the day I started with them, they were always working side by side. So, I think that's most important. I've always learned that instead of just demanding something, you ask it and you do it alongside them. Now, of course, we can't be there all the time doing it, but I think it's the respect. I think if your team knows that you're going to not ask them to do something you would never be willing to do yourself, that goes a long way. And it's a cliche to say, but you know, we really do try our very best to make sure that, you know, call ourselves glorified busboys because as a manager, as an owner, as a director of operations, you are still bussing tables, you are still running food, you're right there. And I think that helps, it doesn't fall on deaf ears. And so when you're asking them to do something, it resonates with them and then they're more likely to do it the same way you did, or how they know, like, "Oh, we wanted to make Jess proud," and, that's always a fun thing to hear.
Absolutely. No, that's brilliant. And what part of the business kind of demands the most attention from you, generally speaking, these days?
The most of my attention I mean, again, I would say staffing, but
Mm,
outside of that, when it like, operations itself, we have a new location, so, our 3rd location is new, and we've opened up that's the one you were speaking of earlier, just, right in downtown Rehoboth, so that comes with its own set of challenges because there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of great, fabulous restaurants in that small beach town, and, we've gotta get it right every time. We have to figuring out how to draw people in and at the same time be consistent with our other 2 locations because sometimes, a confusing message, same brand, confusing message, people are like, "Oh," we might have made a few mistakes when we opened. We had a concept that we thought, "Ooh, let's make it real quiet and get out of the crazy, beach town and speakeasy style, and we that kinda proved not to be working, so we renovated, so we also confused people, so I think most of my challenges right now is trying to get that place, up and running and being as successful as the others, so maybe right now that's where my focus has been a lot.
And you say about the messaging. So was that you just decided to go for a slightly different take on the brand, i.e., it was part of the same chain, but you went for a slightly different, sort of more laid back, quieter feel?
We did. So our restaurants heavily in barbecue and bourbon. That's
Hmm.
what we do. And so we took a concept of maybe more not a speakeasy at all, but more of that look, more of that. We hit our bar in the back of the restaurant. We made it real private and, like dim lighting, which is honestly was wonderful, but it just wasn't working for the passerby. What I think we miscalculated was that even though locals would know who we were confusing the people who visit in the summers only, that we were Bethany Blues, and, like, our signage was a little different even though we were same name, but we added the downtown, we dropped the word. We just did a little bit of a confusing message. So, the menu was the same, we had a few slight variations, but that wasn't the problem. It was more about the way we made our look that confused people. They didn't recognize it as Bethany Blues, so those who had been to us before over the 23 years we've been in business for the other 2 locations, they were like, "Oh, I had no idea this was you guys." So that was our fault.
Hmm. And do you find that that is now coming round? So you're starting to re-educate people. What process are you with that? What part of the process are you in now with that whole sort of rebrand, new location?
Well, something as simple as putting the word Bethany back in, so instead of
Mhm.
downtown blues, downtown Bethany blues. Again, we were worried about confusing people, and in hindsight, we actually confused people. We changed some signage, we renovated, we moved the bar up front, and for,
Mhm.
anybody who's going into the restaurant industry that has a bar, that's a big focus of what you do. My recommendation would be never hide your bar.
Mhm.
Put the bar front and center because it's the pulse of the restaurant. It's what people see. It's what brings people in. And even though they may not be coming in to have a cocktail, to see it, it's a whole different feeling as a passerby sees it. They come in, they're excited. They may still sit in the back dining room that is now hidden, but they were drawn in immediately. So
Mhm. Mhm. But Jess, what's surprised you the most about leadership as your role has evolved over the years at Bethany Blues?
I think surprising for me is, you know, I've had to I've had to change my way of thinking, and I think that's mostly generations, and that in hiring and in training, I think I've actually taken a good number of seminars and read a lot of books on how to plug into this younger generation and get them excited, because it was easy in the beginning for me to say, "Oh, these people aren't don't wanna work." This generation, oftentimes people label them as, being, like, lazy or not, wanting to work, but in reality, what it is they just need to be approached differently, and
Mhm.
I've done a lot of work with myself on that, because when someone doesn't even wanna fill out an application, I'm surprised, but the truth is what they want is to put their name and their email address down, or they wanna text, and they wanna be reached out to, but just differently. So I think my management style has changed, just trying to learn how to make sure this next generation is as excited about what we did, 10, 15, 20 years ago as they are now. And they are. It's just finding the way to get the information to them, I guess, is the best way of saying it.
And of course, we're talking about Gen Z and Gen Alpha. And how do you find managing that those two demographics, and how do they present differently to maybe more sort of millennial type workers?
Yeah, I think they need constant engagement.
Mm.
A lot of our training focuses on them, just talking more and answering the phone and being more present with the customer, because I think a lot of them don't have that. A lot of social media and a lot of text and snaps, they don't do a lot of actual interaction face to face or with words. I know that sounds weird to say. So a lot of what we do is trying to, one, get them in our group the way they like to, but then train them on how to, on just general customer service. I think that makes a big difference. Like, a lot of them are afraid to interact with somebody walking in the door. So we start them at our host stand and we basically tell them, yes, you have to talk to that person as they walk in. I think it helps them. I think it helps them in all of their ways of life, of, instead of texting me that you're going to be late, call me. Let me
Mm.
know. Instead of saying I need a schedule changed and, just putting up your shift, like, make the phone calls, do the legwork, and be more person to person. So I think that's been a big one with a lot of the younger generations. They're just not used to it.
And have you seen any like really wholesome and transformations in any of these members of staff where you felt they have really so benefited from this experience? Maybe some of them it's their first hospitality role, and you found that because of the training that you guys do with them and perhaps some of your management team, they've really come out of themselves and really sort of engaged with the role, and their personality and the way that they engage with other people has changed greatly.
100%. I do. I think, not to say that they might not have gotten there otherwise, because,
Mhm.
also young folks, they blossom in so many different ways. But
Yeah.
I do think that what we offer as, like, a first job is a safe space for them to learn those things. I do think it helps. I think, not just us, I'm hoping all, business owners and managers do it. They need to be pushed, but they also need to be encouraged and trained. So yeah, I think so. I mean, I know it helped me years back to be more interactive and more social. I mean, it might have just been my way, and I think that's one of the reasons why I've stayed in the industry, because I do enjoy it. I love the interaction, the communication, the one-on-one, and, talking with people. But I do think a lot of folks don't, and I think that even if it's not something that they'll stay in their life, it's going to help them. And my own son, I started him at 14 years old working. I said, well, one, I needed him, but two, I knew it would help him. And I knew he would, benefit from having restaurant experience, being in the service industry and having to communicate with people, not just me, not just as teachers, but, customers. Like, people ask the strangest questions and you have to be prepared to answer them, or at least to field them, even if you don't wanna answer them.
Mm, mm. Yeah, it really is such a great career in which to sort of hone your people skills, isn't it? Because you will end up, granted there will be a certain type of person that comes back year on year visiting your various establishments, but no two people are the same. And so just having that different range of clientele, all ages, different needs and expectations, it's such a great training ground for young people, isn't it? Looking back, is there any lessons that you've learned the hard way that you think have made you a better leader, Jess?
Oh gosh, probably many. I've made a lot of errors in my way, and I think one of the things I do tell my staff now is, look, I I continue to make mistakes. It's just a matter of recognizing it, understanding it, and learning from it. For years before I did managing like I am now, I was in catering, and that's probably where most of my mistakes came. So going out and not having the restaurant to fall back on, and maybe not being fully prepared with, I don't know, simple as enough food, or not the right equipment, or maybe not the right amount of staff. I think some of those things you learn pretty quickly, and you'll never do that again. I think anytime you make a mistake, you hopefully never do it again. But I think that's one of the things that has gotten me most prepared to run these 3 restaurants. Is catering really teaches you to think on your feet, and to pivot and to adapt, because it's never gonna be the way you thought when you walked out the door of your restaurant, when you're building a restaurant somewhere else. But I do think that over the years, anytime I have failed at something, hopefully, well, it hasn't been catastrophic yet because 'cause I'm still employed, but hopefully it's been enough that I haven't done it again, or that it's been a teaching moment for me for sure.
Mhm. And is there any advice, or what's the one piece of advice that you'd give someone stepping into their first management role in hospitality?
I mean, I think you need to genuinely like people. I think, a lot of folks will come into this industry because it's flexible. There's so many wonderful things about it that offers people an opportunity, like I said earlier, to always have a job to fall back on, a part-time this or that. But I think you have to genuinely like people. You have to genuinely want to service people, because in the hospitality industry, for all the things that it is and isn't, it really truly is a place for people to celebrate. It's a place for people to come, maybe when they're, sad, but always to make a memory. I can't think of anybody that goes out that doesn't want some sort of interaction. Because look, we could always order carryout. We could always bring in food to home. If you're going out, chances are you're going out because you're looking for some sort of interaction. So I think people going into the industry, especially in a management role, either understand it and acknowledge it, and hopefully, like, genuinely want the best for the people coming in. Because I think that's important, because if you don't go in with a feeling good about yourself and feeling good about what you do, it's a hard business. So people can wear you down. I think sometimes, checking your baggage at the door, which is hard to do, but making sure that you're feeling really good about where you are, it's important.
Mhm, mhm. And you must have seen a fair bit of change in the industry over the years. We all know about COVID. Certainly in the UK, there's with some of the new tax laws that are being implemented, we have quite a lot of independent businesses that aren't doing so great over here. What feels most different about running a hospitality business today compared to when you first started?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest changes, I mean, we all know COVID was such a hard time. It was such an unknown time in restaurants. So many of our restaurants in our small town didn't open back up. And I mean, that's just sad. But then I think a lot of restaurants pivoted, and I think the biggest change for us, and maybe where we were lucky, is our product served well for carryout, and our product served well for, we reinvented a lot of what we did for take home and family meals and things not in the restaurant. But I think, you know, I think small businesses, like we all are, it's like either you're real small and you're successful, or sometimes big companies, franchises, real successful. Sometimes it's the middleman, which I would say that we are. 3 locations, but that's certainly not a ton. And it's not only just one. It's fall in the middle where, you get a lot of different challenges. So I think, COVID and just the, I guess, the atmosphere in general has really made it more. We're focused a lot on social media, and we're focused a lot on carryout, and we're focused a lot on, kind of, streamlining menu so that the folks that do come in were doing a better job with it than trying to be something for everyone. I think maybe that was a thing that after COVID, like, you really had to be, like, specific so that people
Mm.
could find you.
Mhm. And you just mentioned social media. It's become obviously a much bigger part of how restaurants market themselves today and how people discover new restaurants. Certainly, we have tons of foodie influencers in this country, and I know that you have them over there who are sort of turning people onto the newest spot or whatever it is. How do you see social media's role in hospitality today, and how do you guys use it?
I think it's pretty crucial today, and, we use it. Well, we have, so I'm part of the Bethany Blues group, but we have some sister locations, and we have a company that runs all of our social media, and we have, a couple people who do just, like, our website and things. So we have 2 groups that work for us, and that's crucial as well because one of the things that's most difficult for me prior to having those groups was trying to keep up with it. I think
Mm.
one of the things that the younger generation brings, I know we touched on it earlier, is that social media excitement, presence, and knowledge. They're quick, they know, and they're engaged, so they know what people are watching. But social media has taken over your advertising, your marketing. I mean, we still do some traditional forms of advertising and marketing, but most of our monies have been moved to social media platforms, and most of
Mhm.
our, focus has been on that. So I think
Mhm.
it's crucial. I think folks that aren't doing it, um, I'm assuming they struggle a little bit more because I really do feel like that's how a lot of people are getting their information.
Mhm. And but you guys have got such a strong reputation, and obviously you kept going during COVID. You obviously have a loyal following over the years. What do you think has been key to that?
Well, I think our loyal following has been, we have tried to be consistent over the years. We have tried, one of the mottos of our thing is to go above and beyond.
Mhm.
And I do think that, of course, we're going to make mistakes. And of course, we're not always going to, get the best rave review. Someone's not going to like something. I mean, that we try, but that's just, it's inevitable. So the only way we can make it right is by making sure that we follow up, making sure that we know, ensure that customer, whoever it was, it didn't fall on deaf ears. So I think that's been a part of it because, again, small community, you know, uh, reputation travels. And I think every time we make a mistake, we try to make it right. We try to go above and beyond. But I think putting out a good product consistently and great service is key.
Mhm.
It's hard to do, but it's key.
Mhm. And what do you find? What sort of content or messaging do you find seems to resonate most with your customers?
I think, our customers are looking for, uh, they like consistency. Here, they like to know who you are. They like to know their bartenders. I think they feel comfortable coming into a place where they see the same managers. Not to say there isn't turnover because of course there is, but I think, if somebody comes back summer to summer, so just take the tourists, because again, small beach town tourists, when they see familiar faces, it makes a difference. So if you can keep your staff, it's a big part of it. I think for locals who live here year round, same. If they see the same people, they feel comfortable coming in. They feel like they know the quality is going to be there. And who doesn't want to be recognized? Who doesn't want to be remembered? So I think that's a lot of it as well.
Mhm. And if you could instantly improve one aspect of your marketing, like tomorrow, what do you think that would be?
Oh goodness, I would say more of it. I
Mhm.
always feel like there's two camps of social media, that less is more and more is more. I fall into the more is more camp. Understand that there are times that posts are more uh, there. I guess people see them more, you get more hits, more likes. I know that the people who do that for a living, professionals at that, understand it better than I do, certainly, but I'm always looking for more. Like, I feel like if you have too much, you'll never know if you have too much, but you'll certainly know if you don't have enough.
Mhm.
So, I also think following trends, and one of the things I'd love for us to do more of is some of these TikTok challenges. My young staff does. I see some restaurants that do it and some businesses, and I think it's fun, it's engaging, and it's memorable. So even if it's silly, I do think it, like, the more you can have photos and be engaging and I think people will come in, even if it's not for that specific thing. I think they're like, "Oh, Bethany Blues, that was fun. That was cute." And then they walk in, they see the person who was in the video.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think it resonates.
Definitely. Um, so just looking ahead, what excites you the most, Jess, about the future of Bethany Blues and the three restaurants?
Oh, I think just moving on. What excites me a lot is trying to get our small location full throttle, the newest location, getting it, like a wheelhouse, just turning and really recognize. And I think it's on the track to do that. I
Mm,
think for us, it's brand consistency. I think it's getting people excited about now understanding three locations. When I say three locations in a small beach town, we're not that many miles apart.
mhm,
So it's, kind of getting people excited about, you know, oh, I'm like shopping in this location. I can stop in Bethany Blues. I'm shopping in that location. I can stop. So I think for us, it's about just continuing what we're doing, but getting all locations on people's minds, no matter where they are in our towns. And not feeling like they need to go to one because that's where they've always gone to, that they have another spot that they can just pop in and get the same great product.
mhm. And if you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice at the start of your career, Jess, what would it be?
Oh, goodness. Well, it would certainly be don't expect your weekends off and don't expect your holidays off. But I mean, one piece of advice would be, is I would do this industry all over again. I really would. I would say, go into it with a little bit of a better understanding that like not learning along the way, but going in and trying to know some of those. I mean, of course, hindsight's 2020. If I knew some of those things, it wouldn't take me as long to recognize them. But I mean, I think I would do the same industry again because I think it's who I am and what excites me to make somebody's experience wonderful. But younger self, just expect to work, expect to make great relationships, expect you know, um, to to grow and to be excited about what I do.
Mm,
I
love that.
don't think I could sit at a desk. I just don't think I could. I do sometimes, but not often. So I think it would be, just keep doing what you thought, that path was gonna lead you to anyway, because here I am.
And listen, you may have already answered this question, but finally, if someone's listening today, they're building their own hospitality business, what's the one lesson or piece of wisdom you'd want to kind of take away from you and from this conversation?
Yeah, I think it's definitely to go into it knowing that what you're in for is, what that expectation that person's coming in and they need to feel welcome. So you're pretty much on show all the time. You have to understand that, you're checking your baggage at the door and to work on yourself because if you work on yourself at home and you come in with your cup full. I mean, I know that's a cliche to say too, but really coming in with your cup full helps throughout your day. I mean, understand that the hospitality industry is just that. Like we are there to make a great experience for people.
Mhm. Come in with a full cup, guys. What a
Come
great
in with
line.
a full cup.
Yeah, yeah,
Whatever's in the cup, just
yeah.
make sure it's
Just
full.
it's full. That's a lovely note to end on. Jess, thank you so much for taking the time today. And finally, where can people find Bethany Blues online?
Oh, well, they can come to bethanyblues.com.
Mhm.
And we are our 3 locations, click on any of our links. You can find us on social media pages, Instagram, Facebook. Come find us. We're
And
around.
hopefully soon they'll be seeing you doing dances on TikTok, right?
Well, yes, I would leave that to my younger staff to do
Yeah.
those
Sure,
dances.
sure, sure.
That would be more engaging.
Jess, thank you so much. And thanks everyone. Tune in next time.
Thank you so much.